rather than me trying to do a poor job of this next task,
Yeah.
why could you explain for me and for listeners what is the system that you referred to that you employ for this new record?
hmm I mean, I guess in a nutshell, I'm a very amateur astronomer, but I've always been fascinated by just the science behind what's beyond. And something that I noticed was just the shapes in the sky. Since I was very little, I was like, I see a bunch of triangles everywhere. Everything is connected by a triangle, no matter how I see it. And then, so basically, I noticed, okay, the constellations have a very symmetrical shape. I'm curious if this symmetry and this balance can translate in some way into symmetry and balance musically. I That's how kind of this whole thing started of what is a symmetrical shape in music? Well, the circle of fifths is very symmetrical, very scientific formula in a sense, because you can figure out so many things out of the circle of fifths. So let me see what happens. It was almost like a experiment. It was an experiment to what if I overimpose a symmetrical constellation or a constellation over the circle of fifths and see kind of what points get triggered. And by points I mean if a star aligned with one of the letters of the circle of fifths, okay, that's a pitch that I'm going to consider, right? So curiously enough, I think the first one that I did was actually the first track on the record, Antlia. That was the first one that I did, and the combination that I got was literally an E flat major 7 sharp 11 chord. I got E flat, G, B flat, D, and A. And to me, it was like, whoa, this is out. This is so crazy. So that's where it
Yeah.
started. At first, it started. I wasn't trying to, do a whole project or anything. It was just out of my own curiosity. It was in the summer, and during the summer, my husband and I usually go to a place in Connecticut where I have access to the sky, and I bring my telescope and everything. So it was just like out of just my true curiosity, and again, I feel like we are scientists too. We're constantly discovering and researching and trying to find another angle to the 12 notes that we deal with every day. So this kind of how this started. So now I do want to clarify, because I think sometimes in the booklet, like looking back, sometimes it sounds very intellectual.
Yeah.
But for me, this was just a starting point. It was a way to get raw material that would be basically uninfluenced from any preconceived scale or preconceived key signature or anything. I wanted to find another way to just get pure, just collections of pitches determined by the system, right?